The ships came without warning. 300 vessels appeared at the edge of the solar system on a cold Tuesday morning. They were massive things, each one larger than any building ever built on Earth. Their hulls were dark and covered with weapons that humans could not even name. They hung in the emptiness of space like a threat made solid. Admiral Park Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Unyielding, Earth's largest warship. He watched the alien fleet through the main display screen. His face showed nothing. His hands were steady. But inside, his heart beat fast. He had fought in 3 wars during his long career. He had seen death and destruction. But he had never seen anything like this. "How many?" he asked quietly. 312 ships, sir," his officer replied. "All of them armed. All of them pointed at us." Park Tae-ho nodded slowly. Humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel only 15 years ago. They had built their first colony on a world called New Hope just 3 years past. They knew they were not alone in the universe. They knew, someday, someone would come. They just did not expect it to happen so soon. The message came 30 minutes later. It played on every screen on Earth. Every phone, every computer, every television showed the same image. A tall creature stood in the center of a dark chamber. It had 6 legs and 4 arms. Its eyes were like black stones. When it spoke, its voice was cold and sharp, like breaking glass. "I am Chancellor Ven of the Galactic Council. We govern 47 species across this arm of the galaxy. We have done so for 4,000 years. You are new. You are small. You are nothing. But we are generous. We offer you a place among the stars. All you must do is obey." Humanity would give 40% of all resources to the Council every year. All military ships would be destroyed. No new colonies would be built without Council approval. Any refusal would be met with what Ven called corrective measures. "You have 30 cycles to accept," Ven said. "Every species accepts in the end. We will wait." The transmission ended. Silence fell across the world. Ambassador Kim Yuna watched the message from her office in Seoul. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent her whole life talking to difficult people. She had ended wars with words. She had saved millions of lives without ever holding a weapon. But she had never talked to something that was not human. She played the message again. She studied Ven's face. She listened to every word. And slowly, she began to understand something important. Ven was not afraid. Ven was not even worried. In Ven's eyes, humanity was already defeated. The Council had done this many times before. They expected humans to cry and beg and surrender like everyone else. Kim Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found a weakness. She picked up her phone and called Admiral Park Tae-ho. The emergency meeting lasted for 3 days. Leaders from every nation on Earth gathered in a secret bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps. They shouted and argued and slammed their fists on tables. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. A few wanted to run and hide. Admiral Park Tae-ho sat in the corner and said nothing. He just watched and listened. He had been studying the alien fleet since it arrived. He noticed things that others missed. The way the ships moved, the way they positioned themselves, the gaps in their formation. These aliens had not fought a real enemy in a very long time. They were lazy. They were overconfident. They had forgotten what war actually looked like. On the 3rd day, Kim Yuna stood up and spoke. "They think we are weak," she said. "They think we will kneel. They think this because every species before us has done the same. But they have never met humans. They do not know what we are capable of." She looked around the room at the tired faces of world leaders. "We did not survive ice ages and plagues and world wars by being weak. We did not reach the stars by giving up. And we will not bow to these creatures simply because they have more ships than us." The room was silent. Then, slowly, one leader began to clap. Then another. Soon the whole room was applauding. The vote was unanimous. Earth would not surrender. Admiral Park Tae-ho finally stood. He walked to the front of the room and activated a holographic display. It showed a detailed map of the alien fleet. "They have numbers," he said. "But numbers are not everything. They have been the strongest power in the galaxy for thousands of years. They have forgotten how to fight. They have forgotten how to adapt. They think this will be easy." He pointed to the gaps in their formation, the predictable patterns in their movements, the obvious weaknesses in their tactics. "They are wrong," he said simply. Kim Yuna nodded. She had already written humanity's response. It was short. It was simple. It would change everything. 1 week later, she transmitted the message to Chancellor Ven. It contained only one sentence. "We decline. If you wish to discuss terms, you will come to us, unarmed." Across the galaxy, in the great chamber of the Galaxy Council, Chancellor Ven received the message. He read it 3 times. He could not believe what he was seeing. In 4,000 years, no species had ever refused. Not one. Not ever. His advisors gathered around him, whispering nervously. What should they do? Ven's black eyes narrowed. His forearms clenched into fists. They have made a mistake, he said quietly. They do not understand what we are. They do not understand what we can do to them. He turned to his military commander. Prepare the punishment fleet. We will teach these humans what happens to those who refuse the council. Far away, on the bridge of the Unyielding, Admiral Park Tae-ho received word that the alien fleet was beginning to move. He looked at the stars through his window and allowed himself a small smile. The war had begun, and humanity was ready. The news spread across Earth like fire. Every person on the planet knew what had happened. The aliens had come with threats and demands, and humanity had said no. Some people were afraid. They looked up at the sky and wondered when the ships would come to destroy them. They packed bags and searched for places to hide. But most people felt something different. They felt pride. They felt anger. They felt ready. In every country, young men and women lined up at military offices. They wanted to fight. They wanted to protect their homes and families. Factory workers put in extra hours to build ships and weapons. Scientists worked through the night in secret laboratories. The whole world came together in a way it never had before. General Bae Sora sat in the command center of United Earth Strategic Command. She was a tall woman with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. Maps and screens surrounded her. Data flowed from every corner of the solar system. She was the one responsible for keeping humanity alive. She studied the reports from her scouts. The council was gathering ships, not just the 300 that had first arrived. More were coming from across the galaxy. Intelligence suggested at least 1,000, maybe more. Earth had 89 military vessels, 89 against 1,000. General Bae Sora did not panic. She did not despair. Instead, she picked up her phone and called the one person who might give humanity a chance. Dr. Choi Hana worked in a laboratory buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea. Only 12 people in the world knew this place existed. Only 4 knew what was built here. She was young for someone with so much responsibility, just 34 years old. But she had one of the greatest minds in human history. She had solved problems that others said were impossible. She had built things that should not exist. When General Bae Sora arrived, Dr. Choi Hana was waiting. Show me everything, the general said. Dr. Choi Hana smiled and led her deeper into the mountain. The first room contained the quantum displacement drive. It was a machine that could move a ship from one place to another instantly. No warning, no signal. One moment the ship was here, the next moment it was somewhere else. The council had nothing like it. We have installed these on 200 ships, Dr. Choi Hana explained. Hidden ships. Ships the Council does not know about. When the battle begins, they will appear out of nothing. The second room held the null field generator. It was a weapon that could turn off enemy technology. Shields would fall. Weapons would stop working. Engines would die. Ships that relied on their advanced technology would become helpless. The Council has depended on the same technology for thousands of years, Dr. Choi Hana said. They have never faced anything that could counter it. They will not know how to respond. The third room was the most impressive. It was filled with millions of tiny machines, each one no bigger than a fist. They moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish. Swarm drones, Dr. Choi Hana said. 2 billion of them. Each one carries a small explosive charge. Together, they can tear apart any ship ever built. General Bae-Sora looked at the swarm with wonder in her eyes. Can the Council stop them? They could destroy millions, Dr. Choi Hana admitted, but there will always be more. For every drone they kill, 10 will take its place. They cannot fight numbers like this. The general nodded slowly. For the first time since the Council arrived, she allowed herself to feel something like hope. But weapons alone would not win this war. They needed information. They needed to know their enemy. Captain Shin Min-ho received his orders on a quiet evening. He was young, only 28, but he had earned a reputation for doing impossible things. He commanded the Silent Thunder, the most advanced stealth ship ever built. It could pass through enemy territory like a ghost. His mission was simple to explain and almost impossible to complete. He would find their secrets, and he would bring those secrets home. You understand the risks? Admiral Park Tae-ho asked him. Captain Shin Min-ho nodded. If I am caught, I will be killed. If I fail, we will know nothing about our enemy. I understand. Then why are you smiling? The young captain laughed. Because this is the kind of mission I was born for. Because someone needs to show these aliens that humans can go anywhere and do anything. And because I really, really want to see the look on their faces when they realize we were in their backyard the whole time. Admiral Park Tae-ho did not smile, but his eyes showed something like approval. Go, he said, and come back alive. The Silent Thunder left Earth 3 days later. It slipped past the Council fleet without being detected. It jumped into the darkness between stars and vanished. Back on Earth, Ambassador Kim Yuna prepared for the next phase of the plan. The Council would not talk. They had made that clear. They would only accept surrender or death. So Kim Yuna would speak to others instead. She knew that the Council ruled through fear. They had conquered dozens of species. They had destroyed those who resisted. But surely not everyone was happy with their rule. Surely some species remembered what freedom felt like. If humanity could find allies, they might have a chance. Not just to survive, but to change everything. She began recording messages, signals that would be broadcast across the galaxy when the time was right. Messages of hope, messages of defiance, messages that would show every oppressed species that it was possible to stand up and fight. The Council thought they were facing one small planet. They were wrong. They were facing an idea that could not be killed with weapons. An idea that would spread like fire through dry grass. The idea that freedom was worth fighting for. General Bae-Sora finalized the battle plans. Dr. Choi Hana made the last adjustments to her weapons. Captain Shin Min-ho flew deeper into enemy territory. And Ambassador Kim Yuna crafted words that would shake the foundations of galactic power. Humanity was not just preparing to defend itself. Humanity was preparing to change the universe. And somewhere in the cold depths of space, Chancellor Ven gathered his punishment fleet. 1,200 ships, the largest military force assembled in 3,000 years. He looked at the star maps showing Earth's position and felt nothing but contempt. They will learn, he said to his admirals. They will all learn. He did not know that his fleet had already been seen. He did not know that the silent thunder was watching from the shadows, recording everything. And he did not know that humanity had stopped being afraid. Captain Shin Minho had been in enemy space for 16 days. The silent thunder moved like a shadow through the darkness between stars. Its special hull absorbed all signals. Its engines made no heat signature. To the Council sensors, it did not exist. He had seen things that no human had ever seen before. Alien worlds covered in strange cities, space stations the size of small moons, trade routes busy with thousands of ships from dozens of species. The Council's territory was vast and old and powerful. But he had also seen something else, something that made his blood run cold. On every world he passed, he saw the same thing. Soldiers on every street, sensors watching every citizen, species that walked with their heads down and their spirits broken. The Council did not rule through respect or loyalty. They ruled through fear. Then came the message that changed everything. It arrived on an encrypted channel that should not have existed. The signal was weak, hidden inside normal communication traffic. But Captain Shin Minho's ship detected it and decoded it. Human vessel, I know you are there. I wish to help. Meet me at the following coordinates. Come alone. It was a trap. It had to be a trap. Every instinct told him to ignore it and continue his mission. But something in the message made him pause. Whoever sent it had found him when no one else could. Whoever sent it had taken an enormous risk just to make contact. Captain Shin Minho made his decision. He set course for the coordinates. The meeting place was a small moon orbiting a gas giant. No one lived there. No ships passed nearby. It was the perfect place for a secret conversation. A single vessel waited for him. It was small and unarmed. Inside was a creature he had never seen before. She was covered in green scales. Her eyes were golden, with black slits for pupils. When she spoke, her voice was soft and sad. I am Delegate Mora, she said. I represent my people on the Galactic Council, and I have information that your species must know. Captain Shin Minho kept his hand near his weapon. Why would you help us? We are enemies. Mora made a sound that might have been a bitter laugh. We are not enemies, human. We are both victims. The only difference is that you do not know it yet. She transferred files to his ship. Thousands of documents, videos, records going back thousands of years. Captain Shin Minho began to read, and as he read, his face grew pale. The Council had done this before, hundreds of times. They found young species who had just discovered space travel. They made the same demands. Pay tribute, give up your weapons, obey. Most species surrendered. They had no choice. The Council was too strong. Just like humanity had refused. Those species no longer existed. The documents showed what happened to them. Entire worlds burned to ash. Billions of lives ended in hours. Civilizations erased so completely that no one even remembered they had existed. The Council called it cleansing. They spoke of it the way someone might speak of removing weeds from a garden. There was more. The Council deliberately kept other species weak. They banned certain technologies. They limited scientific research. Any species that grew too advanced was quietly destroyed before they could become a threat. For 4,000 years, the Council had made sure that no one could ever challenge their power. Why are you showing me this? Captain Shin Minho asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Mora's golden eyes met his. Because my people were once like yours. We were proud. We had dreams. We refused to surrender. And the Council crushed us. They killed 90% of our population. They put collars around our necks and chains on our spirits. For 3,000 years, we have served them. We have had no choice. She moved closer to the screen. But you have done something no one has done in 4,000 years. You said no, and you are still alive. That means there is hope. Not just for your people, but for all of us. Captain Shin Minho understood now. This was not just a war for humanity's survival. This was a war for the freedom of every species the Council had ever oppressed. He transmitted everything to Earth immediately. Admiral Park Tae-ho received the files on a gray morning. He read them alone in his quarters. When he finished, he sat in silence for a long time. Then, he called Ambassador Kim Yuna. "You need to see this," he said. Kim Yuna read the documents. She watched the videos of burning worlds. She saw the faces of species that had been wiped from existence. And she made a decision. "We cannot keep this secret," she said. "Every species in the galaxy needs to know the truth. When the Council attacks us, we will broadcast everything. We will show them who their rulers really are." Admiral Park Tae-ho nodded. It might cause chaos, rebellions across the Council's territory. "Good," Kim Yuna said firmly. "Let them deal with 100 fires at once. Let them see what happens when the truth gets out." Dr. Choi Hana received the technical data from Mora's files. It confirmed what she had suspected. The Council's technology was old and unchanged. They had stopped innovating centuries ago because they did not need to. No one challenged them. But humanity had never stopped pushing forward. Humanity had developed weapons and systems that the Council could not even understand. "They think they are fighting primitives," Dr. Choi Hana told General Bae-sora. "They have no idea what is coming." The general allowed herself a small smile. "Then let us educate them." 3 days later, the Council's punishment fleet began its final approach to the solar system. 1,200 ships carrying enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. High Admiral Keth stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the distant yellow star that humans called the Sun. "Such a small system," he said to his officers. "Such a small species. This will be over quickly." He did not know that Captain Shin Minho had already returned with secrets that would change everything. He did not know that Ambassador Kim Yuna had prepared a message that would reach every corner of the galaxy. He did not know that Dr. Choi Hana's weapons were armed and waiting. He did not know that he was flying into a trap. On Earth, Admiral Park Tae-ho watched the enemy fleet approach on his tactical display. 89 visible ships against 1,200. The numbers looked hopeless. But numbers were not everything. He opened a channel to all human vessels. "This is Admiral Park Tae-ho. The enemy is coming. They expect us to be afraid. They expect us to run. They expect us to die. They are wrong about all of it." He paused and looked at the stars. "Today we fight for our home. We fight for our children. We fight for every species that has ever been crushed by these tyrants. Today we show the galaxy what humanity can do." He took a deep breath. "All ships, prepare for battle. Let's make some history." The Battle of Sol began at dawn on Earth's eastern hemisphere. Not that it mattered. In space, there is no dawn. There is only darkness and distant stars and the cold silence of the void. High Admiral Keth's fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. 1,200 warships spread across millions of kilometers. Each ship was a killing machine, built by the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could stop almost anything. Keth looked at the tactical display and laughed. The human fleet was tiny. 89 ships. They were insects waiting to be crushed. "Open communications," he ordered. "I will give them one final chance to surrender." His message reached Admiral Park Tae-ho on the bridge of the Unyielding. "Humans," Keth's voice boomed through the speakers. "You have seen our power. You know you cannot win. Surrender now, and some of you may live. Refuse, and we will turn your planet into ash. You have 1 hour to decide." Admiral Park Tae-ho looked at his officers. They looked back at him. No one spoke. No one needed to. He opened the response channel. His voice was calm and steady. "Come and try." The line went dead. Keth stared at the screen in disbelief. Then his face twisted with rage. "Full attack," he snarled. "Destroy them all." The Council fleet surged forward. 1,200 ships moving in perfect formation. Their weapons began to charge. Their targeting systems locked onto the tiny human vessels. Admiral Park Tae-ho watched them come. He waited. He let them get closer, closer, closer. Then he gave the order. Phase 1. Execute. Throughout the solar system, space itself seemed to tear apart. 200 human ships appeared from nowhere. They had been hidden using the quantum displacement drive, scattered in secret positions across the system. Now they blinked into existence all around the Council fleet. The Council formation shattered. Ships that had expected to attack from one direction suddenly faced fire from every direction. Confusion spread through their ranks. Officers screamed orders. Captains tried to turn their massive vessels. But the humans did not give them time. Lieutenant Commander Oh Ji-ho sat in a special chamber aboard a hidden station near Mars. His body was connected to a neural interface that linked him to the largest weapon humanity had ever built. 2 billion swarm drones. "Deploy," he whispered. The drones poured from hidden stations throughout the solar system. They were small, each one no bigger than a bird, but there were so many of them that they looked like clouds of silver dust flowing through space. They hit the Council fleet like a storm. Each drone carried a small explosive charge. Alone, they could barely scratch a ship's paint, but they did not attack alone. They attacked in millions. They found weak points in hull plating. They crawled into engine vents and weapon ports. They sacrificed themselves against shields until the shields failed. Council ships began to die. High Admiral Keth watched in horror as his mighty fleet was swarmed by tiny machines. His officers were shouting. Damage reports came from everywhere. Ships were exploding. Shields were failing. "What is this?" he screamed. "What are these things?" No one could answer him. Pilot Sergeant Yoon Nari led the first wave of human fighters into the chaos. She was the best pilot in the fleet. Her reflexes were faster than thought. Her instincts were sharper than any computer. Her squadron of 20 fighters dove into the heart of the enemy fleet. "Stay tight," she ordered. "Pick your targets. Make every shot count." Council ships tried to track them, but the human fighters were too small and too fast. Yoon Nari twisted and spun through a maze of enemy fire. Her weapons found their marks again and again. Behind her, her squadron followed like a pack of wolves, hunting much larger prey. A Council cruiser exploded in front of her. She flew through the debris without slowing down. "That's one," she said. "Let's find the next." Dr. Choi Hana monitored the battle from her command center on Earth. The time had come for Phase 2. "Activate the null field generators," she ordered. Across the battlefield, specialized human ships powered up their most devastating weapons. Energy fields expanded outward like invisible waves. When the fields touched Council ships, everything went wrong for the aliens. Shields collapsed, weapons went offline, engines died, navigation systems failed. In seconds, hundreds of the most advanced warships in the galaxy became helpless metal boxes floating in space. High Admiral Keth's own flagship was hit. The lights flickered. The screens went dark. Emergency power kicked in, but the weapons remained dead. "What is happening?" he demanded. His voice had changed. The confidence was gone. Now there was fear. His officers could only stare at their useless control panels. Admiral Park Tae-ho saw the opening. He ordered the final phase. "All ships advance. Boarding teams deploy." Human vessels surged forward. They locked onto disabled Council ships. Airlocks opened. Marines in powered armor poured across the gaps between ships. The aliens had never faced humans in close combat. They were not prepared for what came next. Humans fought like nothing the Council had ever seen. They were fast and brutal and absolutely relentless. They did not stop when wounded. They did not retreat when outnumbered. They pushed forward room by room, deck by deck, taking ship after ship. Sergeant Yunari led a team onto Ket's flagship. They cut through alien soldiers with cold efficiency. The aliens were larger and stronger, but they had never fought anyone who wanted to win this badly. She found High Admiral Keth on the bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his guards. He was holding a weapon, but his hands were shaking. "You cannot do this," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "We are the Council. We rule the galaxy." Yunari raised her rifle. "Not anymore," she said. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, only 340 Council ships remained. 860 had been destroyed or captured. High Admiral Keth was a prisoner. Humanity had lost 31 ships and 4,000 soldiers. Their names would be remembered forever. Admiral Park Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Unyielding and looked at the wreckage floating through space. He felt no joy, only a deep, heavy sadness, but also pride and determination. He opened a channel to the surviving Council ships. "This is Admiral Park Tae-ho of the United Earth Fleet. Your admiral is captured. Your fleet is broken. You will return to your masters and tell them what happened here today. Tell them that humanity will not be conquered. Tell them that humanity will not be threatened." He paused. "And tell them we are coming." The surviving Council ships turned and fled. They jumped to faster than light speed and vanished into the darkness. Back on Earth, people watched the battle through transmitted footage. When the last enemy ship disappeared, they began to cheer. In every city, on every continent, people poured into the streets. They cried and laughed and held each other. They had survived. Against impossible odds, they had survived. But Admiral Park Tae-ho knew the truth. This was not the end. This was only the beginning. He looked at the stars and thought about all the species still suffering under Council rule. He thought about Delegate Mora and her people. He thought about the worlds that had been erased from history. The Council had started this war, but humanity would finish it. And when they did, the galaxy would never be the same. The news of the Battle of Seoul spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species heard what had happened. A young species from a small planet had defeated the greatest military force ever assembled. The invincible Council had been beaten by creatures they had dismissed as primitives. And then came the broadcast. Ambassador Kim Yuna's message reached every world in Council space. It showed the truth that had been hidden for 4,000 years. The recordings of destroyed civilizations, the evidence of deliberate suppression, the proof that the Council had built their empire on lies and murder. The reaction was immediate. On 12 worlds, species rose up against their Council masters. Soldiers who had served out of fear threw down their weapons. Leaders who had bowed to the Council for generations suddenly found their courage. The empire that had seemed eternal began to crack. Chancellor Ven watched the chaos from his chamber on Nexara. Reports came in from every corner of his territory. Rebellions, protests, entire systems declaring independence. "How did this happen?" he asked the empty room. "We had control. We had power. How did we lose everything so quickly?" He had no answers. He had never needed answers before. He had simply given orders and expected obedience. That world no longer existed. 1 month after the battle, a human fleet arrived at Nexara. Not a fleet of war, but a fleet of change. Ambassador Kim Yuna stood on the lead ship, looking at the Council homeworld through the viewport. Behind her, Admiral Park Tae-ho commanded 200 warships. They were not here to conquer. They were here to talk. The council chamber was smaller than Kim Yuna had expected. The ceiling was high and dark. Seats for representatives of 47 species lined the walls. The representatives had fled or been arrested by their own people. Chancellor Ven sat alone at the center, looking old and tired. He had aged years in the past month. His 4 arms hung limply at his sides. His black eyes had lost their shine. Delegate Mora stood beside Kim Yuna. She had been named the voice of the reform movement. Species that had suffered under the council now looked to her for leadership. Chancellor Ven, Kim Yuna said. Her voice echoed in the empty chamber. You came to our world with threats and demands. You expected us to kneel. Instead, we are here, in your chamber, and you are alone. Ven's voice was weak. What do you want? Do you want to rule in our place? Do you want to become the new tyrants? Kim Yuna smiled, but it was a sad smile. That is what you would do. That is what you understand. Power and control and fear. But we are not you. She stepped forward. We want justice. We want freedom. Not just for humanity, but for every species you have crushed under your heel. She presented humanity's terms. The council would be reformed into a true representative body where every species had an equal voice. All tribute payments would end immediately. Banned technologies would be shared freely. Any species that wished to leave could do so without consequence. And those responsible for past crimes would face judgment. Ven listened. When she finished, he asked a single question. Why don't you simply take control? You have the power. You defeated our fleet. You could rule the galaxy. Kim Yuna looked at him for a long moment before answering. Because we remember what it was like to be small. We remember what it was like to be afraid. We remember being told that we were nothing and that we had to obey. And we will never become what tried to break us. We will never become you. The chamber was silent. Even Ven had no response. Delegate Mora stepped forward. The reformed species have chosen new leadership. We wish to build something better. Something based on cooperation instead of control. Hope instead of fear. She turned to look at the empty seats. There are others who feel the same. Species who have hidden their true feelings for centuries. They are ready to join us. Together, we can create a galaxy where every species is free. Admiral Park Taeho, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. The choice is yours, Chancellor. Accept reform or face resistance from every corner of your former empire. We have shown that we can fight. Now we are showing that we can also forgive. Ven looked at the humans. He looked at Mora. He looked at the empty chamber that had once held his absolute power. Then slowly, he nodded. I accept your terms, he said quietly. What happens now? Now, Kim Yuna said, we build something better. The months that followed were difficult. Not everyone wanted change. Some species had benefited from the old system and fought to keep it. There were battles and negotiations and long nights of argument. But slowly, the galaxy began to heal. Delegate Mora was elected as the first chancellor of the reformed Galactic Assembly. She promised to govern with fairness and compassion. Her first act was to establish a memorial for all the species the old council had destroyed. Their names would be remembered forever. Technology that had been banned for millennia was shared freely. Species that had been kept in darkness suddenly had access to knowledge that would transform their worlds. Medical advances saved billions of lives. New energy systems ended poverty on dozens of planets. And humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners. Not as tyrants, but as friends. Years passed. The scars of the old system slowly faded. New generations grew up in a galaxy where freedom was not a dream, but a reality. Admiral Park Taeho, now old and gray, returned to Earth. He had spent decades helping to build the new order. Now he wanted to come home. He visited the memorial that had been built in Seoul. A wall of names stretched for kilometers. Every human who had died in the Battle of Seoul, every soldier who had given their life for freedom. He walked along the wall, reading the names. He remembered faces. He remembered voices. He remembered the fear and the courage and the sacrifice. A small figure appeared beside him, a child from one of the reptilian species. Her scales were green, like delicate moras. Her golden eyes were wide with curiosity. "Are you the Admiral?" she asked. "The one from the stories?" Park Tae-ho smiled. "I am." "When you fought the Bad Council?" He knelt down so he could look into her eyes. He thought about the question carefully. "Every moment," he admitted. "I was terrified. But fear is not weakness. Fear is what you feel when something matters. When you care about something enough to fight for it." The child thought about this. "What did you care about?" "Freedom," he said simply. "The right of every person, every species, to live without fear. To make their own choices. To dream their own dreams." He stood up and looked at the memorial wall one last time. "We paid a price for that freedom. A terrible price. But it was worth it. Because now children like you can grow up in a galaxy where no one will tell you that you are small, or weak, or nothing. Where no one will demand that you kneel." The child smiled. She did not fully understand. Not yet. But someday she would. Someday she would read the histories and learn what humanity had done. How they had faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. How they had won their freedom and then shared it with the galaxy. Admiral Park Tae-ho watched her walk away. The sun was setting over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. He thought about everything that had happened, the threats and the battles and the long hard work of building something new. He thought about Kim Yuna, who had passed away peacefully last year, loved by billions across the galaxy. He thought about Dr. Choi Hana, who now led the greatest scientific institution in known space. He thought about all the others who had fought and bled and believed. Humanity had come so far. From one small planet to partners in a galactic community. From frightened beginners to respected leaders. From targets of extortion to champions of freedom. The galaxy had tried to crush them. Instead, they had changed the galaxy. And this was only the beginning. The stars waited, bright and infinite. New adventures, new challenges, new possibilities. Humanity would face them all, just as they had faced everything else.